Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hangout for the Data Science in Stratified Healthcare and Precision Medicine course, the free online course on Coursera. My name is Areti. I'm one of the course organizers.
I'm Alex. I'm one of the teaching assistants.
I'm Minhong. I'm one of the teaching assistants as well.
So welcome to this session. We're excited to be back. So we might have new learners, new students watching this this session. So I thought I'd explain what this is all about. Okay, so every now and then we run live sessions where we get to discuss topics that we see in the course. We get to discuss about your learning experience, anything health data sciencey that is happening in the UK or outside, and yeah, just to interact and engage with you guys. So I thought we'd start by reminding you what the course is about. Okay, so our course is a 5-week course on Coursera. We look at different types of data and how we can model the data and process it, and how that is leading us to this new field in the life sciences called precision medicine and stratified healthcare. So we look at different topics every week, usually about 2 topics per week. We start week 1 with a gentle introduction to data in the health sciences, and a sort of crash course on programming in Python and what you can do in Python to analyze data. Then we move on to week 2 with looking at sequence processing and medical image analysis. And that's something that you are involved with in your research. You're going to tell us all about it, I hope.
Yeah, sure.
Later on in the course, we look at network modeling, process modeling, machine learning, probabilistic modeling, and we also look at natural language processing, which is altogether, so it concerns a different type of data, not your kind of usual structured table-like data, but more in the form of natural language, so English in our case here in Scotland. And then we complete the course by looking at graph data, which is a data representation approach and a set of techniques that enable easier data linkage and sharing, which I think is becoming more and more important in healthcare and the life sciences. We also look at some softer issues around health data science to do with society, law, and ethics. And these are some topics that we get to discuss in the forums. And there's also an assignment, by the way, on week 5, looking at issues like this. So we're very interested in your contributions and what you think about those issues to do with health data science. Okay, that's enough. This was a quick introduction to the course. Now, since Alex is new to the team, I thought it would be interesting for you to tell us what you do in your research, what your background is, how you became interested in what you do, and yeah, just basically tell us your story.
Yeah, sure. So my background is originally in computer science. So I studied previously software engineering and then onto machine learning. And for a while, I've had an interest in applying these computer science methods to data within medicine or healthcare. So this led me towards my current PhD program. So I'm on the precision medicine doctoral training program here at the University of Edinburgh. I'm in my 2nd year now, and I'm looking at my project is looking into ways of stratifying fibrotic lung disease by integrating quantitative CT imaging with molecular endotyping. So I'm looking at ways, looking at different data types from clinical data to radiological data and molecular biomarkers, and seeing how we can use these different data types effectively to refine the characterization of the disease and the patients.
So I have many questions. I don't know about you, Minhong. So you mentioned molecular biomarkers.
That's right.
What is that?
So in our case, these are, we've got serum biomarkers, so they're measured from a blood sample. And we're looking at ways that these markers can be potentially predictive of disease type, and essentially we're using them as variables in our different models to see if they can better characterize different types of patients.
And how did you come about choosing those variables or biomarkers? Was there existing evidence or some indication from published research, or is it something completely new that you're just thinking, oh, maybe this would work?
Yeah, so I think there's a mix.
Okay.
There's a mix from both the existing literature that we suspect will be have already associated with disease, but also we are interested in new ones, of course, to see if we can better characterize it.
Minghong, do you have any questions for Alex?
Just wondering, how do you collect data? How do you get data, and how do you solve about deal with like ethical problems with like using data as a scientist?
So in our case, the data is local from here, from Edinburgh, from the region here in Leuven. So the data comes from the Edinburgh Lung Fibrosis Clinic. So we have a cohort directly from here, and all of these patients have consented to have their data used for this study. So I'm working on anonymized data, and yeah, so we've got a defined cohort for which then we have these different data types available.
So for those patients, we also have their CT scans. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So I'm wondering. So you said you have a background in computer science. Had you already done any image processing courses, or did you already have the skills before you started your PhD? How did that work for you?
I did do some image processing, but I would say not really specific to the way that I'm working with images now. Now we're using a already existing software to process our images. So this creates this is why it's called a quantitative CT imaging. We're looking at a software that can characterize different parts of the lung by different textures, and then we're hoping that this will be useful to identify disease potentially earlier, for example.
And that software, is it something that was developed locally within our university, or is it something that is out there and people can buy and use off the shelf?
And also that's through a collaboration.
Okay. A local collaboration, just out of curiosity.
No, an international.
International collaboration, very good. Excellent. Good. And okay, this is the last question, I promise. You mentioned that you're doing a precision medicine, or a doctoral training program in precision medicine.
Yeah, that's right.
So I know that many of the people that might be watching are probably not based in the UK, or perhaps not involved in academia. So perhaps you could explain a little bit what this is about and how DTPs work.
Yeah, so so this one was set up, I think, in 2016 or so. And every year they recruit a cohort of students. So and students apply for existing projects that are specified by some researchers already here. And this particular DTP is provided both by the University of Edinburgh and the University of Glasgow, and it's also in a partnership with the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm. So lots of exciting opportunities for research, and it also includes the structure of the doctoral training program is that this one in particular aims to provide the focus is on interdisciplinary research. So it aims to train the students in different fields. So there's quite a large focus on quantitative skills. So really going from the biology to the medicine to statistics and computer science.
Great. Sounds like a good cocktail, a good mix of people that's coming. And do you get people from different backgrounds as well?
Yeah, that's right.
That's amazing. That's really good. Should be fun.
Yeah.
Very good. Great. So shall we move on to the course a little bit? So as I hope you guys know, there are discussion forums in the course, which we hope that many people use them, but we hope that we'll encourage even more people in the course to be using them. And you might have noticed that Alex and Minhong have been very active in the forums lately. So Minhong, what kind of posts and messages have you seen in the forums?
So yeah, I've been supervising the discussion forum, and we are very happy to see there are more people joining our discourse, and we have people from all around the world, basically. For example, on the grading discussions, like we have like Noah from the US, we have Derek from Kenya, we have Francisco from Argentina, for example, and there are more people, of course. And we notice we have people from many different areas, different backgrounds. We have data scientists, we have biomedical engineers, we have people in clinical researches, and we have even people in business. So we are very happy to see many people from different areas to join our course and interested in healthcare, in like data science in healthcare. And we also noticed like it's relatively quiet on discussion forum recently. So it would be great if you can share your ideas about the project, your idea of the data science, or you have any questions, just feel free to ask on the discussion forum. And also if you have any like suggestions or feedback of our course, feel free to post it. And yeah, we are here to support you and maybe like answer the questions. And
I cannot stress enough how helpful the discussion forums can be for learning. So this is something that I hadn't realized until I saw really good discussions in a different course that I teach on Coursera. It's called Code Yourself. Basically, when you're stuck as a learner, it's good to try and figure it out yourself. But it's also absolutely fine if you're stuck after a day or two to post a message and ask for help. And that's where I think the real learning happens. So I've seen some really, really good discussions. Someone posting a question, then getting an answer, follow-up question, follow-up answer, and what about this? So I think it's one of the best assets in the course. So I can't stress enough how welcome you are to post any kind of messages there.
Yeah, and we also noticed for past several months, there are many people talked about questions about accessing the Jupyter Notebook. And I think the problem should be solved now. So if you still have problems with accessing the notebook, please give us a shout on the discussion forum. And also there are several questions about how to use Jupyter Notebook specifically, or about the user interface about the Jupyter Notebook. And just for information, there's a user documentation on their official website. And they provide detailed information about starting the Jupyter Notebook server, or how do you give an introduction of the user interface of the notebook specifically. So it would be useful if you can have a quick browse of their documentation before you move to use their notebook by yourself. And also, there was a question about the course deadline. I think for this course, we are really flexible about the deadline. So don't worry about it. If you can't finish online, you can always enroll to your next section. So as long as you finish all the content, it will be fine.
And by the way, if at any point you move on, you enroll to the next session, all the work that you've done follows you. It doesn't mean that if you've already done quiz 2, you need to redo it. Okay, so it's all good.
Yeah, and also there are many questions about how to specifically about Python, and because many people are from a background without programming and they are totally new to using Python. So I think we can provide several tips about the beginners for Python.
Yeah. Is it okay if I just clarify what the purpose of programming is in this course? So when designing this course, we thought it would be good to give people a taster of what these techniques look like in code, basically. So you have an opportunity to run some data science tasks and see it with your own eyes what kind of output you would get, what the data looks like. and what the algorithms might look like. So when it comes to the programming, you definitely need to start with a week 1 material for the Jupyter notebooks. I would definitely say don't go straight to week 3 unless you've done week 1 when it comes to the programming stuff. From that point onwards, you can be a little bit more flexible or playful if you like. That's fine, because the different topics and the different programming tasks are modular. You're expected to, so we hope that you will be able to understand the code that is there for you. You'll be able to run it and understand the outputs that you get, and also use that code to tweak it to go for similar tasks. So for instance, let me think. So if in week 1, for instance, you were asked to get the average of the age column, you could reuse that code to get the average of the blood pressure column, okay? This is just an example. You're not expected, so we don't expect you to become proficient or advanced or professional programmers at the end of this course. This is not what this is about. So writing code from scratch, like completely from the beginning, you won't have to do it for this course. And really, if that's what you're interested in, have a look at additional courses or different courses to help you with that. That would be my my recommendation. But yeah, you were talking about tips and what to do if you're new to programming. Was there anything that you had in mind?
Yes, so talking about different resources, and I have several ones to suggest. Like, for example, DataCamp. It's an online platform for them Python or data and data science. So there are free courses, and you can run your code online. And so they provide like interactive Python tutorials. So you can always try your code and modify it or whatever.
And many of their introductory courses are available for free, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. Also for R, not just Python. And there are also like several other courses on Coursera for Python. And Coursera provides a courses collection called Python for Everybody Specialization. And it includes 5 courses, specialization including one for getting started with Python, so you can get a test of Python, and then one also specifically for Python data structures, and also one specifically focusing on using databases with Python. And besides this, also there are many resources online, just Google it, and we find several ones might be useful. There are one for specifically tutorial online for NumPy, and one specifically for pandas, and we will share the links afterwards.
Yeah, so what we'll do is add some comments underneath this YouTube video for you to use. Yeah. So we'll have the links to those resources. Just to say that these are just some suggestions for the ones that are curious or the ones that would like some additional practice. It doesn't mean that you need to go through these resources in order to complete this course. No. Anything else from you, Alex?
I mean, I think mainly it's just if there are any questions related to this course for the programming, really post it in the discussion forum. It's the best way to to solve your problem, but then also learn and discover from things about programming.
And remember, on week 1 there are a couple readings, and including a video that is Introduction to Jupyter Notebooks and Introduction to Programming, and we try to explain quite a few basics there. So you might find it useful later on in this course to go back to those resources to remind yourself, this is how we close and halt, I don't know, a notebook, or there is a dependency between the code in different cells. So this is actually something that I've seen quite a lot. Some posts in the forum saying, my code is not working, I'm getting an error. And very often it's because you might have forgotten to run the code just above it, on which this particular cell would depend. So yeah, all this is, so I think there's a reading called Tips and Tricks or something like that around programming in week 1. And we do give you some tips like this there. My personal suggestion when it comes to programming and really also around complex problem solving is when you feel you're stuck or when you're overwhelmed with a particular task, just try to break it down into smaller parts. Okay, so for instance, if you're given the task to calculate the average or age of people that have, I don't know, that live in Germany, of gender female, and have never taken a blood test in their lives, whatever, you can break it down into different parts, right? How do I calculate the average age? That's one thing you can try. Try it in a cell, see if it works. Okay, good, we've got that. Then you move on to, how can I filter out my patients? How can I identify the patients that live in Germany? Okay, the ones that live in Germany, and what was it? And
never have blood test.
have never taken a blood test in their life. That's a terrible example. Good, we've got that, and then start building on those, and then combine them. Okay, this is a very kind of silly and simple example, but in reality, I don't know about you guys, but in my case, when I program for my work, I constantly have to do this. Very often, if I go straight away for the big complex problem, it just doesn't work because I've made a mistake or there's some syntactic error in the meantime. So yeah.
So I think it's also useful when you do have errors and when you run into problems to work backwards and break the larger chunk into smaller, see which parts work, and then you can usually identify the specific part which is causing your problem.
That's an excellent tip. So yeah, very good. Good. Anything else that you'd like to add with respect to programming? There is a post in the forums around programming tips and resources that Patrick, I think, put together a while ago.
Yeah.
So there are some suggestions there. We'll go back to that post and add the new tutorial links and the new suggestions. So yeah, so there will be more things for you to have a look at. Good. And finally, remember we said at the beginning of this session that it's a good opportunity to let you know about things happening in health data science. So this is what we're going to do now. Okay. So I'm going to talk about DataFest, which is an annual event, a very big event taking place in Scotland. And it's all about data and data science. It's organized by a Scottish Innovation Centre called the Data Lab, who have also actually funded this course. Thank you, Data Lab. And there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people coming not only from Scotland but internationally as well, visiting Edinburgh and other places in Scotland to learn about data science, get their hands dirty when it comes to data science and so forth. So there's a series of a program of events called Data Talent, which is about bringing together students and people working in industry or academia. There's another series of events that are part of the DataSciMed, which is part of the DataFest. And then there are several fringe events. So fringe events are events organized by different organizations in Scotland that have to do with data science. So we thought, why not organize one ourselves? So about a month ago, mid-March, we offered a workshop. We, as in we, the University of Edinburgh, and we offered a workshop called A Hands-on Introduction to Data Science in Health. So the whole idea of the workshop was to give a brief introduction and a practical introduction to data science and how data basically and data methods are revolutionizing the life sciences. The target audience was more or less the kind of people we designed the course for. So people that have understanding of biomedicine and healthcare, but know very little about data or programming. And that's the kind of audience we got. So there were a few computer science students as well, but in general, there were many people working in the health sciences. Many of them, do I remember correctly? Most of them were in academia, but we had some from the NHS, and a couple working in the third sector. So it was quite interesting. And what we did in the workshop was reuse workshop resources like the Jupyter notebooks and some of the readings to run the event. So we talked about different types of data, and actually our participants talked about data that they're familiar with, and they mentioned NHS data, they mentioned genomic data, lots of different other omics data, so proteomics, metabolomic data. They also mentioned electronic health records. Did I mention that already? No, I didn't. Okay, good. And coming from different disciplines was interesting because some people focused on pharmaceutical data and others on I don't know, genomic data or healthcare data. So it was an interesting discussion. And after having been introduced to the different types of data that we have in the life sciences, we explained a little bit about data science and what it is. And then we got them to use some of the Jupyter notebooks. So, and that's something that we are happy for anyone out there to use in their own training events. So in our case, we use the introduction to data science, so the programming Jupyter notebooks in week 1, so the very introductory ones. And then we moved on to the natural language processing notebook, which I think worked quite well. So I remember one of the participants going, which is always a good sign, because very often we talk about natural language processing as if it's something very, I don't know, very special. Yeah. It's just text, you know? So I hope you have noticed the data that we use in this notebook is basically text in 2 different Word documents. That's what it is. And you use methods to analyze this kind of text, this kind of data. So we use those notebooks. So that's why it was a hands-on introduction. And then we got to discuss how data science can help drive innovation in the life sciences. So we had different groups discussing this, and then we got all back together to see what different people thought. I thought, so for me, that was my favorite part of the workshop. I don't know about you guys. I really enjoyed it because there were many ideas that I thought were really cool. So some people mentioned real-time monitoring with the use of devices and how you make use of such data to turn it into sort of action. I think that's a great idea. I know there are people working on this around the world, but it's great to hear it from people that are new to health data science. So very good. And then what I also found very interesting was, so we had a discussion about who can profit from health data science. I was very happy to see that many people said everyone, and I think so too. So patients can profit from health data science, doctors can, hospital managers can, people in the government can. And actually, what I thought was very interesting was the fact that many people mentioned policymakers, which is something that we don't really discuss that much in this course. And that got me thinking. So perhaps we could include a new post in the forums about policy and how health, how new knowledge or results from health data science can be fed into policy. So in the life sciences, we talk a lot about evidence-based medicine. Why not evidence-based policy? And how can that be facilitated or enabled through tools like Jupyter notebooks? You know, so I'm very curious. I am very curious to hear what you guys think. So we'll post a new message in the forums asking for your contributions. Yeah. So overall, it was a lot of fun to run an event like this. And the reason why we're discussing this here is not to brag and say, "Ooh, how good it all, how well it all went," but to say that look, you can use the course resources to run your own training events, and the course material has a license that allows you to do that. So feel free to use them any way you would like, basically. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Was there anything else that we were planning to talk about and we missed? I don't know. Okay.
I think.
In that case, thanks for watching. Looking forward to discussing with you in the forums. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye.